In late 2022, the internet crossed a structural threshold. Generative AI began outputting massive volumes of text, code, and imagery into the public domain, which were then immediately scraped, processed, and fed back into the next generation of models. We entered a recursive, self-consuming information ecosystem. Computer scientists identify this loop as model autophagy disorder, or generative model collapse. When you train a model on the synthetic outputs of other models, it progressively loses contact with the original distribution of human data. The first symptom of this disorder is the amputation of the tails. Rare observations, minority perspectives, and anomalous edge cases simply disappear from the searchable record because they lack the statistical density to survive the compression cycle. This creates a condition of epistemic inbreeding. Just as biological inbreeding concentrates genetic defects, informational inbreeding amplifies inherited errors and reinforces systemic biases until the error is indistinguishable from the source. The result is a vast, interconnected digital landscape that artificially converges. Rather than representing the actual complexity of the physical world, the ecosystem rapidly aligns around a few statistically dominant, mathematically homogenized representations. This recursive self-consumption actively degrades the diversity of civilizational knowledge. What appears to a user as a highly stable, universally agreed-upon consensus is actually a brittle, fragile system stripped of its adaptive capacity. To understand the danger here, we must separate evidential convergence from genealogical convergence. Evidential convergence occurs when 10 independent researchers measure the real world and arrive at the same conclusion. Genealogical convergence happens when 10 separate websites all derive their claims from the exact same obscured AI ancestor. Standard AI safety frameworks attempt to solve this by adjudicating the factual accuracy of an output. But classical truth-checking fails the moment informational provenance is lost. If the entire network repeats the same plausible error, fact-checkers are just comparing the error against itself. Large language models operate strictly within text. They lack the pre-linguistic, biological capacity of humans to probe physical environments, feel homeostatic pain, or detect the faint, weak convergences of anomalies in the real world. Without those biological anchors, an AI system inevitably filters out the exact outlier data required to spot the single physical anomaly that refutes a 1,000-year-old theory. The smooth, predictable answers suppress the disruptive, messy realities. This loss of signal indicates a hard limit for classical truth correspondence. To govern agentic AI, we require a framework capable of measuring the thermodynamic stability of information itself, the Bridge360 Metatheory. The foundational axiom of the Bridge360 model is that physical, informational, and social systems do not exist in separate silos. They occupy a single, unified entropy geometry. This horizontal axis represents the unified probability space. On this scale, intelligence maps to a specific sub-interval of navigability between 0 and 1. That safe, functional middle ground is defined as the epsilon spine. It sits precisely between 0.45 and 0.65. This is the exact mathematical corridor where complex systems remain adaptable and governable. To track a system's stability, Bridge360 uses the normalized entropy eigenvector, or NEE. As long as that pulsing data point stays inside the epsilon spine, the system remains healthy. We can map the pathology of epistemic inbreeding directly onto this geometric space. Then AI models recursively generate data based on other synthetic data. They strip the system of external entropy, dragging the NEE out of the safe corridor and plunging it to the left. This zone, dropping below 0.45, is over-constrained. It represents a state of high fragility, where a network becomes brittle and mathematically incapable of adapting to new perturbations. A system stuck down here has lost the structural diversity required for long-term viability. It can only repeat what it already knows. Under the Bridge360 framework, a system can output perfectly true statements while still being entirely ungovernable, simply because it has succumbed to entropic inbreeding. This dynamic explains how bad information structurally outcompetes good information. Bridge360 formalizes this through its fourth pillar, rule of inference memetics. Within a highly connected AI ecosystem, inferential rules do not propagate because they are logically valid. They propagate based on their memetic fitness. Every rule has a K budget, a measure of the computational energy required to process it. Rules that require less energy to parse and compress will naturally spread faster across the network. Large language models act as normal science attractors. They relentlessly compress the corpus toward the most conventional, high-frequency patterns, smoothing out jagged complexities to minimize energy expenditure. Consequently, a false, hallucinated, or highly simplified rule can easily outcompete a valid, nuanced rule, simply because its structure is more memetically fluent to the AI's processing architecture. Bridge360 calls this Potemkin stability. The information network looks impenetrable, cohesive, and unified on the surface, but its entire stability rests on mathematically unbounded, fragile assumptions. Without deliberate entropic governance, the path of least computational resistance guarantees that fluency will eventually overwrite factual complexity. To fix this, we have to govern the actual transformation of data. Bridge360 does this by restricting networks to what it calls entropic morphisms, transformations that are explicitly bounded by mathematical limits. The primary operational tool for this is Axiom 19, an admissibility filter that sits exactly at the edge of the epsilon spine corridor. A data construct can only pass Axiom 19 and enter the governance corridor if its fragility index and residual entropy remain strictly bounded. If it costs too much hidden energy, it is rejected. Passing this filter requires hard operational metadata. Every data packet must carry a path or provenance signature, a caveat vector detailing its exact sequence of human and AI ancestors. Based on these provenance tags, Bridge360 applies a band classification, A, B, or C, to weigh the structural integrity of the evidence. If a claim is repeated by 1,000 AI agents, but they all trace back to the same synthetic source, it is automatically downgraded to band C. It is genealogically circular, stripping it of unearned authority. Band A classification, by contrast, demands fully independent empirical measurement. You cannot synthesize your way into band A. Structural admissibility filters replace the impossible task of fact-checking the entire internet with the highly executable discipline of tracking data lineage and bounding entropy. Unchecked epistemic inbreeding is the thermodynamic default of any closed agentic AI loop. Without intervention, models will always consume their own exhaust. This exposes the danger of the unconstrained approach to AI development, the pure pursuit of scaling, chasing an unpredictable spark of intelligence without establishing structural boundaries. Bridge360 demands a rigorous counter-approach. It aligns with the demand for perturbation-resistant governance, pursuing objective-driven, auditable physical intelligence through structured latent space planning. To prevent collapse, the model relies on the handshake protocol. This is a mechanism that forcefully injects external, real-world data into the AI's closed recursive loop, breaking the cycle of synthetic generation. The handshake relies on a capacity to decenter the observer, stepping outside the model's preferred frame, and notice the weak anomaly that the system's own rules are designed to ignore. Humans remain the primary agents of this external sensing. The AI ecosystem can only survive its recursive decay if human paradigm agency continuously forces it to confront new, unmodeled physical realities. The ultimate end state of Bridge360 governance is the human ASI braid identity. It is a strict dual-key structure linking human intent directly with superintelligence. It operates on an absolute attestation rule. Neither the human nor the ASI can unilaterally alter the parameters of the navigable corridor without mutual verification. At regular intervals, the braid utilizes handshake checkpoints to verify the integrity of the data, forcefully pushing the system's entropy out of the inbreeding zone and back into safe stability. In the face of superintelligence, the pursuit of classical truth is no longer sufficient. The sheer volume and fluency of synthetic data will overwhelm any traditional fact-hacker. Civilizational survival in the ASI era demands active entropy management, rigorous provenance tracking, and the unyielding structural discipline of the Bridge360 metatheory.